Serious, what do you think is the creepiest, most disturbing unsolved mystery ever? The Cleveland torso murderer. From 1935 to 1938, there was a serial killer who chopped off the heads and appendages of 12-20 people and left their torsos for people to find. The famous detective Elliot Ness was on the case, and the killer taunted him by leaving 2 torsos within full view of his office. The killer was never identified, nor were the majority of the victims. My grandpa wrote a book on this case. The killer will never be identified, and the victims especially. The victims seem to be mostly homeless, prostitutes, etc. They weren't exactly traceable people. The killer was surgical. Like literally surgical in the cuts. Nobody will ever know who did it, but Elliot Ness was tortured with solving the case. Though, not as much as the victims were undoubtedly tortured. Sadly, it'll remain an unsolved serial killer case. It's very interesting. Edit. Totally didn't expect this to blow up, and I'm seeing a few people have asked the title of the book. It's called Torso and has been out of print for a while, but should be able to find it on Amazon. You can find anything on Amazon, lol. Honestly, the Cape Intruder isn't disturbing, just weird as hell. During the night in Cape, Maine in like 2005, people who kept their doors unlocked would wake up to find a man staring at them, and he would quickly flee. No people were ever injured and nothing was ever stolen. They just watched people sleep apparently. That gave me the creeps. Yikes. With all these horrible things in this thread, that one creeped me out the most. The Axeman of New Orleans. https://en.m. Wikipedia. Org Wiki. Axeman of New Orleans. Guy was murdering people but wrote a letter that he wouldn't kill anyone who played jazz in their home. Never caught. I remember reading about that from Aaron Mankey's Law. Funniest part was, he kept his promise. That night, jazz emanated from every house, and nobody was killed by him again. The West Mesa Bone Collector. The bones of dozens of women were found at a construction site. No other clues. The Sabotage family murder. https://en. Wikipedia. Org Wiki. Sabotage family murder. Late on the night of the 30th of December, 2000 in Sabotage, Tokyo, a man broke into the house of a family of 4, strangled the son in his bed, stabbed the father, and brutally killed the mother and daughter. The killer then spent hours in the house eating their food, using their toilet, and going through their paperwork like he owned the place, and eventually left, never to be found since. The Hinterkaifeck. https://en. Wikipedia. Org Wiki. Hinterkaifeck murders. Murders always freaked me out. I've read quite a bit about it, and it sounds like it was probably a neighbor. But the creepy part is that the killer was probably hiding out in the attic for multiple days beforehand. I read about this for the first time when I went on a multi-night hiking trip. I stayed in cabins. The first night, there was a loft above where we were sleeping. I stared at it all night. Edit. Adding a really good write-up. https://www.reddit.com Unresolved Mysteries comments MJR600/ on this day 99 years ago, one of the most horrific on our Unresolved Mysteries. It has way more information than the Wikipedia page. Read this a while back and just remembered about it. Prior to the incident, the family and their previous maid reported hearing horrible sounds coming from the attic, which led to that maid quitting. Ah, hell no. The disappearance of Brandon Swanson. http://Engelman. Net Brandon Swanson. It's a lengthy case, so I won't summarize here. But he went missing while on the phone with his parents. His last known words being "oh shit" before the line went dead. Not a trace of him has ever been found. Edit. Lol what? I go away from Reddit for a few hours and I come back to upvotes and awards? Y'all are too kind. Thanks. Yeah, this one sticks with me. I know it's most likely he fell into the river. But so what, they never found a body. Technically not unsolved since everyone can guess what happened to her, but it's one of the creepiest emo. Alyssa Turney. https://Charlie Project. Org case. Alyssa Marie Turney was a teenager who disappeared in 2001. Her stepfather, Michael Turney, was obsessed with her. He stalked her at work, put cameras in the vents to spy on her, and made her sign contracts to say he never molested her. Michael picked her up from school early on the 17th of May 2001 and she's never been seen since. Her half-sister, Sarah Turney, has an amazing podcast called Voices for Justice. https:// www.voicesforjusticepodcast.com, which explains the case in detail, and because of her Michael Turney was arrested in August 2020. What happened to Pedro Lopez? He is one of the most prolific serial killers in history, and claims to have murdered over 350 women and girls since his release in 1998. His whereabouts are currently unknown. https://en.m. Wikipedia. Org wiki Pedro L %C3% B3 pairs. Serial killer. They released him? The death of Rebecca Zahor. https://en.m. Wikipedia. Org wiki death of Rebecca Zahor has stuck with me. Zahor's nude body was found hanging from a balcony, with her wrists and ankles bound and hands behind her back. Her death was ruled a suicide. As if that wasn't strange enough. 2 days prior to her death, the 6-year-old son of her boyfriend fell down a staircase and died. His death was ruled an accident. There's a lot to read about this case, and I highly recommend it if you're into true crime. I remember watching a documentary on this one. They focused so much on whether it would be possible to bind her wrists behind her back and not enough on who TF commits suicide like that. Asher degree. What made that young girl leave home in the middle of a storm with a backpack? There's so many weird things about the case to me. She went missing on her parents' anniversary. She ran into the woods when approached, and likely left home in her pajamas. It feels like she left on her own. I just can't begin to imagine why. In the early 80s, all within 18 months of each other, 3 paperboys in the Des Moines, IA area all went missing during their morning route. The cases have never been solved. There are theories ranging from a pedophilia ring, an ex-employee who was a creeper kidnapping them, and even a lone wolf type situation. It's a bizarre case that has baffled Iowa for years. I had one of those early morning past routes and dang, I never thought about how dangerous the isolation at that time of the morning could have been. As a kid, I always kinda liked the peacefulness of being up and out on my bike that time of day. The Las Vegas mass shooting is the worst such event in our nation's history, and law enforcement basically told us nothing. Yes, also, maybe I've just missed it, but it's almost like the vast majority have somehow just forgotten about it. I don't think I've seen anyone speak about it since the first anniversary. The disappearance of the Beaumont children. https://en. Wikipedia. Org wiki disappearance of the Beaumont children. Prov equals flower 1. The Beaumont children are siblings who disappeared in 1966. There are still to this day investigations ongoing to try and find the remains of these children. There have been foundations of sheds and houses dug up. The children have never been found and the suspect, S, has never been identified. Read The Satin Man by Alan Whitaker. Super compelling theory. I think he has it. Creepy neighbor guy who had a history of abuse and got off on the texture of satin. In the basement someone noticed a little girl's purse matching a purse belonging to one of the Beaumont children. I'd like to see the bastard that killed Abigail and Liberty get what he deserves. Friends with the family and they confirmed they were assaulted. https://en.m. Wikipedia. Org wiki murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. What happened to the Alamo lighthouse keepers? Most likely they were swept out to sea by violent waves. But no storms were reported on the dates they went missing. And if there were, why would they leave the safety of their lighthouse? Most likely they were swept out to sea by violent waves. But no storms were reported on the dates they went missing. And if there were, why would they leave the safety of their lighthouse? It was most likely a rogue wave. https://en. Wikipedia. Org wiki rogue wave. Rogue waves, as the name suggests, are seemingly random oceanic phenomena. The first rogue wave wasn't even detected until 1995. Prior to that, rogue waves were thought to be scientifically impossible and just tall tales from sailors. In 1969, a student was killed in the stacks of the library at my old college, Penn State, and was found with a singular stab wound on her chest. It wasn't even late or anything, and while there were many suspects, no one was ever arrested for it. It's insane how someone could kill a person in broad daylight at a major university and get away with it. It's not really anything super crazy in comparison to other stories here. It's just weird to me personally because I would always study there and I didn't find out about it until after I graduated. Several people even saw the killer leave, and one even tried to follow him, but couldn't keep up. The murder of the Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme. He was killed over 30 years ago and no one have found the murder. The Black Dahlia case. How can someone randomly disappear and be found chopped in half by a surgeon who was never found? What? Doesn't add up to me. It'll likely never be officially forensically proven. But I feel confident that Dr. Hodel did it. I'd even venture to guess she wasn't his only victim. In my opinion, it's the city of San Francisco train derailment that occurred in Hardin, NV on the 8th of December 1939. The train, run by the Southern Pacific Railroad at the time, derailed at a bridge over the Humboldt River at a speed range of 60-90 mph. The accident resulted in 24 fatalities and multiple injuries. Days later, investigators discovered tools at the bottom of the Humboldt River, determining that the wreck was caused by sabotage of the rails. https://en.m. Wikipedia. Org Wiki 1939 City of San Francisco derailment. Charles E. Peck. He passed away in a train accident but kept calling loved ones after he died. Can't figure this one out. Edited. Thank you guys. He only left voicemails in the strictest sense of the word. They were all static. https://medium.com. The mystery box. Ghostly phone calls from beyond the grave. The story of Charles E. Peck 41B9B183E9C. Easily explained by a damaged cell phone or pressure from debris on a physical keyboard. Not necessarily the most creepy or disturbing thing I know of, but it was close to me. A friend I went to school with from 6th-12th grade was driving home when a car pulled up next to his and the driver shot him in the head. Killed him instantly. This was about 7 years ago. No one has any idea why or who the shooter was. No one has ever said anything. He had no enemies. Was universally liked. Never hurt anyone. He was 20. Our community is not large. Someone knows something but has never come forward. Real shame. Had a bright future. My biggest fear I weirdly developed when I started driving. My anxiety-ridden brain went, what if someone pulled up the side of you and started shooting? You would be fucked. I brushed it aside until I heard a ton of stories of the same thing happening randomly to different people. I live in a peaceful city, thankfully. Alicia Navarro. She went missing. Presumably after sneaking out to meet with a man she was talking to on Discord. It's creepy because of how real it is. As a naive girl who met up with guys I befriended online as a teenager, I just cannot stop thinking about how goddamn lucky I was. What creeps me out the most is that whoever she was talking to knew that cops would look on her phone laptop and told Alicia to take them with her. The murder of Robert Wone. https://en. Wikipedia. Org Wiki. Murder of Robert Eric Wone is something I think about often. He was with friends, just staying the night, and what happened to him sounds brutal. Even more disturbing to me is the fact that everyone who was in that house that evening seemingly have a pact of silence and are walking around free as a bird. The missing Sodder children and the fact the parents received a supposed photo of one of the boys years later. In case anyone is interested, here, https://en.m. Wikipedia. Org Wiki. Sodder children disappearance is the wiki. Flight 370 Malaysian Airlines. Didn't the Atlantic or someone do a whole feature on it saying it was most likely a pilot committing suicide? Edit. This lays it out pretty well. https://www.theatlantic.com magazine archive/2019/07/MH370 Malaysia Airlines/590,653. Kyron Horman. I feel like somebody knows something that will blow the case wide open, but to this day nobody knows where he went or what happened to him. There are some solid theories out there, but it'll always be a mystery until we get an official answer. Jessica Chambers. She was set on fire in her car and had gasoline poured down her throat. Paramedics found her walking down the lane on fire. The only part of her body that wasn't burned was the bottom of her feet. She did not survive. Police found a suspect but did not have enough evidence to charge him. Paramedics were so traumatized by what they saw, they had to go through therapy, and broke down on stage during interviews. She tried to name her attacker, but her throat was so destroyed, she couldn't be understood. Fucking what the fuck. The yogurt shop murders that took place in Austin, Texas in late 1991. It's been the subject of a couple episodes on 48 Hours, and a book devoted to the case was published around 5 years ago. Who Killed These Girls? By Beverly Lowry. https://en. Wikipedia. Org-Wiki 1991 Austin Yogurt Shop Killings. https://en. Wikipedia. Org-Wiki 1991 Austin Yogurt Shop Killings. I've watched, listened, read a lot of true crime over the years, and one that stands out is from the reboot of Unsolved Mysteries with the man who fell through the roof of the hotel, or was thrown rather. I remember there was no scientific explanation for how he went through like that. The suicide theory was even debunked. Most creepy cases have some logic somewhere in them, but this one just didn't, that I've heard so far. I don't think there's any new developments, but anyone who's familiar. What do you think happened? Ray Rivera. https://en. Wikipedia. Org-Wiki Death of Ray Rivera. The Unsolved Mysteries episode about the case was quite biased and left a lot of key information out. There have been many Reddit threads on the case, many detailing the misleading elements of that Unsolved Mysteries episode. Ghislaine Maxwell was found guilty of sex trafficking. Alone. Somehow. The people she was trafficking young women to were never exposed. And they're still out there. Have fun thinking about that one. That one house with the watcher sending letters to the new homeowner. The mystery of the Maritime man. Not because it's necessarily disturbing, but very creepy in a mysterious sort of way. His body was exhumed recently for DNA testing. https://www.news.com or National Crime. Fresh hope in Maritime man mystery as forensic researchers examine DNA news story /0383774B01893C812,622D55. For me, the Tylenol poisonings are just off-putting with how easy it was, how widespread the poisonings were, how the guy was never caught, and the lasting impact of the incident. The part that always gets me is the one case of the young man who was in hospital from the Tylenol and died, back at the house. His brother and sister-in-law had headaches from all the tension and crying and took Tylenol from that same bottle and also died. Just so tragic. I am an avid Unsolved Mysteries reader, and I don't know why it has stuck with my but Carly Hughes. 16-year-old girl called her stepmother to pick her up from a party. Reportedly was too scared to sleep because she thought someone would kill her, and the next day she disappeared. There was some weird interviews and dynamics between step-parents and birth parents, and a bunch of theories abound. Her father was just arrested for corporal injury to spouse. No further details have been released, but that's a pretty scary charge. Seems like dad has anger issues and stepmom disliked the girl. Her poor mother. The Ibthon Forest of Horror in Nigeria. A local taxi driver goes missing and his friends create a makeshift search party and investigate a forest. Instead of finding their friend, they find an abandoned school or factory that have the remnants of a hellish torture, murder, ritual killing and human trafficking. 8 survivors were rescued. Numerous body parts, rotting corpses and personal artifacts were found. The perpetrators were never found, although local politicians and ritualists were suspects. Whilst this discovery is disturbing, the mystery for me is that the original taxi driver still hasn't been found. I'm just gonna leave this right here. https://en. Wikipedia. Org-Wiki Ibthon Forest of Horror. The Disappearance of Zeb Quinn. https://en. Wikipedia. Org-Wiki Disappearance of Zeb Quinn. WAPROV equals FT1. He was 18 years old when he went missing in 2000. Was working his shift at a local Walmart and afterwards wanted to look at a new car with a colleague, when he allegedly received a call that made him take off frantically. After that he was never seen again. The strangest thing is that a few days later his car was found in a parking lot, with the headlights turned on, a pair of lips and an exclamation mark drawn on the back window in pink lipstick, and a live Labrador puppy sitting inside. In 2017 the colleague was arrested for his murder, but all the strange details still make no sense at all. That all just sounds so strange. Poor bloke. And his poor family. I doubt they'll ever get a proper answer. Missy Bevers. A suspect in full SWAT armor breaks into a church and smashes windows and breaks open doors with a hammer, looking for a local fitness instructor. They then find and beat her to death before getting away. There is high quality surveillance video of both them and their car, but investigators couldn't make out the license plate. There has been a suspect who was cleared because of an alibi, and there's been no recent updates. The Mr. Cruel case. It's absolutely terrifying and disgusting. What's this? I don't know if I want it in my search history or not. John Bennett Ramsey. The cops were terrible. Don't interview two suspects together. Timothy Pitson. A kid who was taken from school by his mother, went to a zoo, a water park and all those fun places a kid would love, and then went missing after his mother killed herself in response to her rocky marriage. She left a suicide note saying sorry and that Timothy would be safe but never found. Pretty sad considering that the father still believes he's out there, but I'm betting he's dead. Lived close to where it happened to but not when it initially happened. I just listened to a podcast about this and there's a theory she gave him to an Amish family to raise. No idea her reasoning behind the whole thing. Very strange situation. What happened to the 3 prisoners that escaped from Alcatraz? Supposedly a letter was provided 30 years or so after to the FBI. Yet they vanished without a trace and the only things left were the items they escaped with that washed up. If they were washed out to sea, the items wouldn't have been on a beach. Yet no trace of them. Apparently 2 of them were brothers, and their mother received flowers after their escape. At her funeral, people noticed 2 tall, ugly women who spoke to nobody and left quickly. So personally I think they survived at least. 2003 Angolan Boeing 727 disappearance. Also the Paraquat murders in Japan. Crazy how an entire 727 can disappear post 9/11 without a trace for 20 years. I once saw this Google Maps mystery of a plane in the middle of the Cambodian jungle that people think was a Boeing jet. And I always thought it was fun to connect these two. The Tylenol murders. Still think it's the main guy that they suspected. Where is Sierra Lamar's body? They have someone convicted for her murder but he never gave up the location of her body. Her remains still haven't been found. David Hampson, the silent man who stands in the road. Probably not the most horrific in this list and he hasn't hurt anyone. But still really disturbing, especially for people who seek closure and explanation of things. This one is sad. The most common theory is that he can't afford to live on his own or care for himself, so he causes silent public disturbances as a harmless way to get thrown back into jail. The ghost ship of the Mary Celeste. It was an American merchant brigantine discovered adrift and deserted in the Atlantic Ocean on the 4th of December, 1872. Ship's cargo was intact, and captain's and crew's personal belongings were undisturbed. None of the 10 people who had been on board, including Captain Briggs, his wife, and their 2-year-old daughter were ever seen or heard from again. It's known that the missing lifeboat was cut from the ship, so we know the whole crew very quickly abandoned ship. The most likely explanation was some phenomenon, an accident or freak weather occurrence, panicked the crew. Jack the Ripper. There's a few victims compared to others' cases. However, the way it was done is horrible. It's a mystery unsolved since 1888 and that will never be. When you know that during that times, London smelled, was hidden by a thick fog, everything was dirty and the people all struggled despite the industrial boom. Imagine when you are from the lower class ever, knowing a serial killer is outside and you literally have nothing to protect you. The policemen were useless. It happened quick, and the killer disappeared. It put London in terror. My aunt was abducted, raped and murdered when she was 6 years old, in the hallway of her grandmother's apartment in Seattle in 1936. Never been solved. Seattle's oldest unsolved murder. Firstly, the murder of John Bennett Ramsey. Just the idea that her own parents might have done it is disturbing, especially considering the circumstances, and also the Keddy cabin murders. Not only did the 14-year-old daughter of one of the victims find them tied up and stabbed to death, 3 more kids were still asleep in the bedroom, having no idea what had happened. Removed. The disappearance of Lars Mittank, a German man who went on vacation in Bulgaria in 2014. He was last seen at the airport where he was brought into a private room by airport security after his mother had called telling them her son was behaving strangely, saying there were people after him over the phone the night before. A few minutes later, he's seen bolting, and I mean full on sprinting out of the room without his luggage. He ran out of airport, scaled the huge fences around the perimeter and was never seen again. Hundreds of witnesses, CCTV footage and a police presence, and the man still basically disappeared off the face of the earth in broad daylight. What I think happened was, Lars had to stay behind while his friends returned home. Due to a perforated eardrum, he was prescribed an antibiotic for it, one which he might have had an allergic reaction to, causing some sort of psychosis. A lesser known one that sticks with me is Selena Mays, https://www. Burlington County Times. Com story news the 11th of December 2021 Willingboro NJ Selena Mays missing person 25 years /858,145,002. 12 years old. 9 months pregnant. Disappears from her room overnight. She didn't bring any belongings with her, and neither she or the baby have ever been found. Her dad and his family were involved with a shady church, but there's no proof they know what happened to her. The obvious theory is that her baby's father killed her and hid the body to avoid statutory rape charges. But nobody knows, or will admit to knowing, anyhow, who he was. 12 years old, 9 months pregnant by an unknown person. Forced to complete the pregnancy due to the family's religion. Part of a church with a particularly authoritarian leader where she was also homeschooled. Disappears overnight from her family home with nothing and no disturbance. Eesh. That's a terrible story all around. My great-uncle Jack McGinn disappeared off his shrimp trawler in the Gulf of Mexico in the 1950s. Apparently when he came back from World War II he became a real sob. Family thinks he was either mutinied by his crew or left to rot in a Mexican jail. We will never know. The 27th of December, 2020. 2 truckloads of butter worth over $200,000 were stolen in the Canadian city of Toronto. The trucks were recovered empty. Finding a motive for this crime could be somewhat difficult to ascertain. Between that butter heist and the syrup heist, https://en.m. Wikipedia. Org Wiki Great Canadian Maple Syrup Heist. Looks like these criminals are about to hit a waffle factory and disappear forever. And NBSP. The movie could be called Point Breakfast. The Zodiac killings and the clues he left. William Tyrrell went missing from his front yard in Australia. Nothing has ever been found to suggest where he went or what happened. There's so many theories but nothing with strong evidence. His foster mother is currently facing charges of giving false or misleading evidence to the Crime Commission. Both parents have been charged with child endangerment, not William. And just yesterday, the police stated that she is now a person of interest in William's disappearance. Something extremely fucked up happened at that house the day William disappeared. There is a theory that he fell from the upper floor balcony at his grandmother's house, and the foster parents hid his body and then reported him missing. The Hinterkaifeck murders in Germany. Someone murdered a family of 6 one by one in their barn and home and then lived with the corpses for 3 days. Prior to the murders the family's maid had quit because she heard footsteps in the attic and thought the house was haunted. The father told his neighbors he found footprints in the snow leading from the woods to a broken door in the barn and a strange newspaper on their property that no one in the area subscribed to. Look it up on Wiki. It's some real creepy shit. What really happened to Madeleine McCann? In my hometown, there is a case of a 16-year-old girl named Chandra May. She was working in 1982 I think at a McDonald's. My mom was getting off her shift early and Chandra wanted off early instead so my mom let her swap. She never made it home. Her car was found on her long driveway with the door open. Her purse was open, but nothing taken. She was found almost a month later hog-tied in a lake. She had at least DNA from 2 males. They had kept her hostage for weeks. I may be off on a few facts, but I guess it was so creepy BC it was so close to home and they never found her colors. The idea of being captive for weeks as a sex toy for some random people is for me, a girl, terrifying AF. What the actual fuck was up with June and Jennifer Gibbons? Yeah, I wonder that too. It was beyond strange. Interviews with the surviving twin are also very odd. Her speech especially. It has to be the Burari case for me as an Indian. Around 11 members of a family hanged themselves in a circle in order to bring a family member back to life. They died. But it was creepy AF. It is even on Netflix. Burari case. https://en. Wikipedia. Org W index. PHP. Title equals Burari deaths and old id equals 1,091,260,820. This Japanese man in the 1980s who was found dead inside a septic tank that's connected to the ladies' restroom. The spy in a bag case, the death of MI6 operative Gareth Williams, whose decomposing corpse was found zipped into a locked duffel bag in the bathtub on his flat. The key to the padlock was inside the bag under his body. There are many theories that he had been investigating Russian money laundering and tax fraud and paid the price. However, the police concluded that no one else was present at the time of death. There were no fingerprints or DNA found on the bathtub, including his own. It's a very strange story. https://en.m. Wikipedia.org Wiki Death of Gareth Williams. The guy who somehow fell behind a massive wall-mounted freezer in a grocery store, possibly department store, and got stuck and died. And they only found his remains years later when they physically removed the freezer unit for reasons unknown. And when they found his body, everyone reported smelling something like a dead body for a few weeks after he went missing. That was terrible. The yogurt shop murders in 1991. Austin, TX. Elizabeth Barraza murder. She was murdered in her driveway in the early morning by a person looked to be disguised as a woman. Grainy security footage and no answers. What caused the Bronze Age collapse? I'm a fan of the system's collapse theory, but the exact details are fascinating. Just how so many civilizations can all within a lifetime collapse into nothingness. Scary stuff. Tara Calico, she went missing in 1988, and a photo of a girl resembling her, hands bound and mouth duct taped, was found a year later in a parking lot, and the girl in the photo had a scar that matches Tara. She has never been seen since, and her family believes the girl in the photo is her and that she was sex trafficked. Scotland Yard analyzed the photo and concluded that the woman was Calico, but a second analysis by the Los Alamos National Laboratory disagreed. An FBI analysis of the photo was inconclusive. https://en.m. Wikipedia.org Wiki Disappearance of Tara Calico. Edit, spelling, and thank you for the award. Robin Hood Hills murders. It wasn't the WM3. Roger Ellison. https://truecrimediva.com Roger Ellison, a high school senior, disappeared from the basement of the former Cedar Edge High School in Delta County, Colorado on the 10th of February, 1981. He has been neither seen nor heard from since. I am going with the murder of Sister Catherine Sesnick. A nun teacher in Baltimore disappeared for several months. Then her body was found. At the school she taught, there was heavy allegations of sexual abuse of the students by the male headmaster and other male teachers. There was a documentary series on Netflix called The Keepers. The death of Noah Donohue. https://www. Bill Fastelgraph Company. UC News Northern Ireland Noah Donohue death report reveals SNI refused to pay overtime to help search 41,142,629. HTML. He went missing from South Belfast for 6 days. Then someone found his naked corpse at the bottom of a storm drain in North Belfast. Did someone else kill him, or did he do it to himself? Either way, how did he get into the storm drain without anyone seeing or stopping him? How did he even fit in the drain to begin with? Irish storm drains are really small. The details are super weird. He was caught on CCTV cameras riding his bike, and as he proceeded along the route he took, he would lose more and more things. Somehow he went for a bike ride, lost his backpack, then ended up naked, and then in some cul-de-sac he had no reason to be in or even any reason to know about. Then he apparently went and found this storm drain that happened to have been left unlocked, climbed into it, and crawled a great distance inside, or was taken by someone. There was an article that suggested it was a racist killing, as the area has a bit of a history with racist violence and gangs and the like. But that doesn't really explain how he ended up in the storm drain, or even why he was riding around shedding his clothes. As a diver, I find the disappearance of Ben McDaniels to be super interesting. They say he went into a cave and never came out, but some of the world's top cave divers looked for him and never found a body. The only evidence that he went diving was staged gas bottles, but they were filled with normal air, not any sort of mixture or anything. The owner of Vortex Springs, where Ben went missing, also died mysteriously the year after. He almost certainly drowned and had his body disposed of by local divers. It was one of the most popular dives in the country, and people didn't want his death to close it to the public. as that has happened plenty of times to other locations. Kyron Horman, how does a kid get dropped off at school and never make it to class on time? That disappearance creeped me out throughout my childhood. Eater, how coincidental that the next day after I posted this is the anniversary of his disappearance. Eater 2, typo. The Girl Scout murders that happened in the 70s in Oklahoma. They never caught the guy that did it. Murdered 3 girls and then vanished. The camp has been closed ever since that day. New DNA tests pretty much confirmed it was Jean Leroy Hart. https://www.wfmz.com News. National DNA points to longtime primary suspect in 1977 Oklahoma Girl Scout slayings. Sheriff says Article 16 DD 7382-6C1B 5913-8 Beck 7236 E70 E4769. HTML. The Panama Girls. As a hiker who's gotten lost on the trails before, this one freaks me out the most. Even if nothing sinister happened, it's a horrible way to go. Cindy James. Very bizarre. Her story has been covered by a lot of true crime channels. If you haven't heard it before, look up the voicemails she got, or made, if you'd like to lose sleep. A woman in our expat group was doing home renovations and took out a door frame which was filled with teeth, just full on teeth and a lot. She asked if this was a Dutch superstition or something. We were all like, no, call the fucking police. What happened with that? You can't just leave us on. Her door was full of teeth. The Yuba County 5 is definitely up there. That case where a picture of a tied up woman and little boy with duct tape was found. Neither of them have been seen or found ever again. Still haunts me. Forgot the name. Or that case where a woman was probably kidnapped from a Disney cruise ship and people saw her on an island as a prostitute. She was probably being used for sex trafficking. No one has seen her since. Lars Mittank. He was seen running away on airport CCTV and never seen again. Girl from the Maine. https://en.m. Wikipedia. Org Wiki. Girl from the Maine. A girl, age estimated 15-16, was found in the German River, Maine, tied to a parasol stand. She had been severely abused for years. No one ever found out who she was, due to the fact that she was assumed to be either Pakistani or Afghan. There was a theory that she was brought into the country through diplomatic circles, working as a servant. The Phoenix Lights. I can't imagine how so many people witnessed this without a decent explanation. The Disappearances of Felipe Santos and Terrence Williams. https://en.m. Wikipedia. Org Wiki. Disappearances of Terrence Williams and Felipe Santos. 2 men go missing after being arrested by the same deputy within 3 months. He claims he dropped them off at Circle K stores, but his stories are inconsistent. They haven't been found since. My dad, having gotten his green card a few months before, was terrified of getting pulled over by cops since he was working in the same area. Jack the Ripper. The photo of the last victim still gives me nightmares. The murder of little Gregory in France. A 4 years old was missing in 1984. The same day, they found his body in a river 7 kilometers away. The creepiest part of this case is that the family started to receive weird phone calls by someone named the Crow up to 4 years before. A man with a weird voice was threatening them. Then they started receiving letters threatening them. A day after the murder they received calls and a letter mocking them. They never found out who was the murderer. There is a Netflix documentary about it. The 39 Deaths and Disappearances from Fort Hood. My Uncle John, loved by all, left home in the middle of the night. My aunt saw him on an escalator in Bloomingdale's Dept store 23 years later. Full stop. Called out his name several times. He turned, said I'm sorry, and that was it. My mother remained heartbroken afterwards. The Disappearance of Jody Huisentruit. https://en.m. Wikipedia. Org Wiki. Jody Huisentruit. The Sodder children. There was a house fire and the children apparently never made it out. The ladder that the dad kept on the side of the house was missing, so he couldn't save the kids. However, no remains were ever found in the rubble. Multiple children just disappeared without a trace after the fire. No clues as to what happened to them. I live in Alaska and I think about how many serial killers are active here all the time. It's insanely easy to disappear someone up here. I know this isn't exactly the question posed, but it does disturb me. Attention. Serious, tag notice. Jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted. https://www.reddit.com AskReddit Wiki Index Wiki Rule 6. In any comment, parent or child, parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit. Message compose to =AskReddit if you have any questions or concerns.